Good evening. This is Maurice Fawcett once again, going live, part 3. The subject tonight is tariffs and international trade. President Donald Trump has threatened to put tariffs on a lot of products coming into the United States. And people are fearful that it will cause prices to be inflation. And they are absolutely right. It's going to cause inflation. So why is he going to do it, or why is he threatening it? So if you were president, what would you do? So first of all, I'm going to tell you what trade is supposed to do, how it's supposed to work in an idealistic situation. And then I'm going to tell you why it's really going on, what is really going on, and why he is threatening this, in my opinion. You know, a lot of y'all out there hate Trump. I mean, you're so emotional about it that anytime anything of reason comes up and I ask to discuss it with some people, they can't discuss it. You know, in that video about outwitting the devil, one of the things he says is at the point of frustration, when you're trying to have a conversation, people will just go off on you because they really, can't think clearly enough to have a discussion about it. So number one, let's talk about international trade. When I went to Graduate School of Business at Fordham University, I took a course in international business. And one of the concepts that they taught us was called the theory of comparative advantage. I'm going to say that 3 times, and I think you need to write it down. Because if you really want to get out here and fight him or understand him, you better start to understand these theories. It is the theory of comparative advantage. For the 3rd time, it is the theory of comparative advantage. If you go back 100 and 120 years ago, when they built a car, they will build that car from start to finish. 1 man, 2 people, a team of people, they would build the car from start to finish. Then a man by the name of Henry Ford, he gets credit for it because I hear it might have been a black man or something who actually did it. But anyway, Henry Ford is giving credit for inventing and implementing the assembly line. And on the assembly line, people specialized. And the theory is that when you do something over and over and over again, you get better at it. You become more efficient, cost efficient, time, everything. There's some negatives, but I'm not going to go into that right now. Okay, so that's the assembly line theory. And as a result, he was able to pass those savings on to the consumer, and Americans became a accessible, affordable item for transportation in America. When you get to international trade, the theory of comparative advantage deals with this. Let's say the United States of America needs 100 different resources to survive, to live. Let's say we need iron, we need milk, we need coal, we need coffee, we need wood. You need all of these different components to actually have the products that you need to live every single day. Okay? So every country needs 100. Maybe some needs 105, some needs 90, or whatever it is. So the theory is that if you make all 100 products for your consumption, that you will not make all of them efficiently and cost effective enough. So the theory of comparative advantage says you should make the 20, 30, 40, 50 products that you make the best, that you can make the most cost effective, and then trade with other companies, and they should also make the 20, 30, 50 products that they make the best and trade. And that way, everybody benefits from it, like the assembly line. So the theory of comparative advantage, got a little bit tongue-tied, trying to talk too precise. The theory of comparative advantage says that all the nations should work together, and through trade, everybody gets the lowest possible price on all their products collectively to live. It's beautiful. But there's certain things that are happening in the world, and the world is not working. 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 And the world that make this not the best concept. And America, in many times, is bearing the brunt of what's going on. Now, I'm going to go back into the 80s. And Japan was dumping products on America. Let me go back to what I spoke about in the previous two videos. You better know your enemy's warrior code. But there's a theory from the martial arts that says the ultimate samurai warrior, the best, will do everything possible to defeat his enemy without pulling his sword out. In fact, a couple of people told me their sensei, their teacher, their leader, their guider will tell them, if you're in a room and you sense trouble, you should leave. If you ever get a chance to listen to my Martin Luther King speech, I mention that because in a way, King used nonviolence and was able to defeat a superior enemy without resorting to violence. But I don't want to go there right now. So let's go back. Believe it or not, America was in a war in the 1980s. You said you didn't know? We wasn't supposed to know. Like Malcolm said, the best slave is the one that doesn't know he's a slave. The best opponent is the one who doesn't know he's in a fight. And with the samurai mentality, what Japan tried to do was have an economic war and destroy the American economy. In fact, if you go back when they had Prime Minister Nakasone, what he said was the reason that America was in bad shape because it had too many niggas. That's what he said. He said that we were inferior and we were dragging down the entire American economy. Go back and read. And then George Bush actually had went over there and, you know, he almost choked on a chicken bone, but a lot of people viewed it as like, they say, hat in hand, like we was almost over there asking us, subservient to them. What is dumping? Dumping is when you make a product. And in Japan, let's say for $500 for a television set back in them days. And you either sell it in America for $500, not making any money, or you sell it in America for $400. And the intent of doing that was so that America could not compete in TVs. And as a result, the TV business in America would have to go out of business because they couldn't make any money. Then the Japanese would own that TV business, and then they could charge you more. That's dumping. That's one of the things that's going on in the world. And why the system of economic trade is not always working. Another thing, too, and I'm going to use real estate taxes. You have a house in the North Bronx, which has a lot of 1, 2, and 3 family houses. For example, you may have a house, and in the North Bronx, the taxes might be $6,000, $7,000. You move that same house across the border into Mount Vernon, and the taxes over there might be $14,000, $15,000, $16,000, $17,000. Question why? See, New York City has a big business, commercial business, Wall Street, tax base. So as a result, New York brings in a lot of revenue, can keep its property taxes down. Mount Vernon doesn't have that base. And also, too, they said there's too many people of color who are low income in Mount Vernon. So as a result, it doesn't have the tax base to keep the taxes low. One of the contentions is that our cost to survive in America is higher for a thing like defense. What do I mean? How much does Mexico, for example, spend on defense versus what we spend on defense? And this hemisphere, we have the Monroe Doctrine by James Monroe, President James Monroe, that said is that an attack on any country over here is that an attack on us and we would defend them. So who has the biggest army? Who spends more money on defense? America does. That's why last year, Trump said that we should pull out, I think, was it NATO or one of the organizations over there, because these countries are supposed to spend a certain percentage of their GDP, gross domestic product, on defense, and they're not. If you go back to World War II, could England and France have defeated Germany without the help of the United States? In my opinion, the answer is no. First, we kept giving them equipment and supplies on what they call the Lend-Lease program. And then Pearl Harbor, the quote, unquote, surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, drew us into war when Hitler declared war on the United States. I said quote unquote because I'll do a separate video on that, because a lot of people don't think that Pearl Harbor was a surprise attack. Okay? So one of the things is today is suppose the United States, Trump told Putin he could do whatever he want. Do you really think right now Britain and France could defeat the Russians? Do they have enough military might to do so? Particularly when these countries over there are not spending what they should on defense, because deep down inside they'll expect that America come bail their ass out again. If I'm wrong for saying so, let it be. So what we're looking at is that we have a lot more expenses than these other countries, because we got to protect them if something happens. Then too, take a country like Mexico. They got a lot of rich people down there. But why are so many Mexicans leaving Mexico wanting to come into America? So in many instances, we're taking care of their people, and as a result, all of our expenses and everything in America are going up. That's what some people are saying. If you don't agree, you don't agree. So we complain about high prices, but maybe the problem is that we're carrying more weight than what we need to. Now, you can disagree with that or you can agree. That's your choice. So now you're the president of the United States. People complaining, they say it's because of the bird flu or something with eggs. They complain about everything. Everything's too high. So now you got a president say, I tell you what, I'm going to put a tariff on everything. Being that y'all don't want to do certain things and pick up certain costs, we're going to give a tariff. It's going to cause everybody to experience inflation. So it's a threat. Whether he'll go through it or not, I don't know. But maybe if they added another 10, 15% to these Lexuses and Genesises and everything that's coming from overseas, maybe you won't buy them, and maybe you'll buy a Cadillac or a Lincoln. I don't know. But that's the theory. So what would you do? We were carrying too much of the weight for other countries who are not taking care of their people, who we have to protect militarily, and which you got as a president who's saying, no, we're going to put a tariff on because we're going to end this unless you do ABC. So look what's going on in the world today. People are feeling sorry. Let me ask you, what's the difference between the land in America and South America? I want to know, what's the difference? Why is America so much more advanced than these other countries? See, first of all, you go to some countries and they persecute their women, or they don't allow women to rise up to the stature they can and get educated as much as men. So right there, you're eliminating and you're curtailing your own brain trust. America's not perfect, but I believe that a woman has a better chance of getting an education and being somebody in America than she has in most of these other countries all around the world. They got coal, they got oil in the ground. Then you have different economic systems. Some people want to lean towards socialism. I don't believe in socialism. I'm going to do a separate video on that about capitalism and socialism. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the average person can't define socialism and they can't define capitalism, but they want to sit there and blast it. So now you're the president of the United States. Prices are up. And these other countries are not carrying their fair share of the weight for defense. They're not taking care of their people. Everybody want to run here. See what I'm saying now? Now, I've only been on here 15 minutes, and I said the other day, I would love if people start to ask me some questions. But that's international trade. That's the theory of a comparative advantage, that in a system of fair trade, we all benefit, but it hasn't been fair from the Japanese dumping products and trying to destroy American industries. Destroy. So that once our companies could not make those products anymore, afford to make them, then they would make them and charge us a higher price. Any questions so far? Like I said about the taxes. Taxes are higher in Mount Vernon than New York City. Now, I can cut this short at 15 minutes. I see Mark Maffei is on here and everything else. But let me go back, give you a little bit more background about what happened with American cars back in the 80s. A lot of American products. I read an article in 1980 in the New York Times. Because I read stuff like that. I'm proud to say it. You know, y'all looking in the sports page and y'all trying to see who Diddy hanging out with or whatever it is. But I read it. And it said that there was a big fundamental difference between American businesses and Japanese businesses. They said 80% of the American corporations were run by business school graduates. And those schools being Harvard, Yale, Wharton, University of Chicago, Stanford. And when you are taught to run a business the American way, a lot of it, they said in the article, was in response to Wall Street. The 90-day business cycle and profits so that the stock will go up. So as a result, when they could see this thing happening with oil and then they needed to go ahead and retool the plants to build smaller, fuel-efficient cars, it got pushed, well, let me make this profit, make these bonuses, and I'll let the next CEO worry about that. So as a result, the way our businesses were structured, they did not make the investment in the infrastructure to compete against the Japanese. That article also said that 80% of the Japanese corporations were run by technical graduates, engineers, chemists, biologists, etc. And they looked at the world and business differently. They said, for example, in science, they teach you for every action, there's a reaction. And in that, there's a short-term reaction and a long-term reaction. So they started to do things differently. Like, for example, I remember in the article, they said the American car at that time, let's say, had $500 of storage costs built in. And what do I mean by that? Parts came off a train, truck, airplane, and they went into a warehouse. So you had the cost of the warehouse. You had the cost of heating and cooling the warehouse. You had the cost of the guards of the warehouse. Okay? Then you had to take it from the warehouse and move it from the warehouse into the factory to put it on the car. And that cost money. But they said the Japanese took scheduling to the point that when a part came off the train or the truck, that it went right into the factory, and their storage costs were almost zero. Then another thing they said culturally was that in America, that the owners of the corporations had become elitists, and they were separated from the worker. So if a worker had an idea about something, there was no way for him to give that idea to the people who were running the company. The executives, you could tell them because they had on their tailor-made suits. They had a separate executive garage and they had a separate dining hall. So one of the things the Japanese did was they eliminated that. They had everybody wear the same uniform. They had everybody eat in the same cafeteria. They wanted a worker to talk to upper management so that they could work together to build a superior product. So there's a lot of factors that go on to what happens in this world other than what some people tell you. Any questions? So let's summarize. All the countries should work together to keep prices down. And that's not happening. We are carrying a much bigger burden of the cost of defense for a lot of countries. We are carrying a big cost of their people coming here because they can't give them jobs. And the question is why they can't give them jobs. Why can they not take the same resources that they have in the ground and develop their countries the way ours has been developed? But sometimes it's simple. People come here, go to school, get an education, but they don't go back home. You know, that's one of the things that Louis Farrakhan said, and I lived by it. Farrakhan once said, for example, if you could take back home what you've learned in corporate America, you could almost free your people overnight. He said, but they will resent you. So in many instances, these people who come from here, from these other countries and get education, they don't go back home. They want to stay here. So they don't have the same brain trust that we have here in America. So once again, my intent tonight, and I've been on here 21 minutes, was to tell you about international business, how it's supposed to work, how it's actually working, and I'll ask you the question, what would you do if you were president of the United States? And to add on what I said in the other video, he's firing off executive orders left and right. Man, he got people upset. He got people scared. He's firing people. Okay? This thing with the migrants, it's not Trump. It is Trump and it isn't Trump. What do I mean by that? Trump is doing what a lot of Americans want. You said that you wanted the illegal immigrants out. So they're going out and getting illegal immigrants. But now people, oh, no, it's not right and everything else. Last week I saw was a provost or somebody from Manhattan College, and they was blasting Trump and all the poor people and everything else. So I tell you what, get out the pulpit. Go out there and convince the people that we should open our doors and let everybody in. Ask people in America to take a migrant family into their house. Ask them. Some point in time, you got to cut through the BS and look people in the eye. You know, it's like somebody, you know, I know they blast everything. Oh, the insurance companies, this, that, everything. But they living off annuities. They never ask the companies, well, what are y'all invested in that you can give me this high rate of return on my annuities? Because the same companies that you're blasting is the one that they're investing in. So why don't you pull your money out? Let me give you a lesson. There's a film called 3 Days of the Condor. Robert Redford, made back in the 70s. And the plot behind 3 Days of the Condor is that they review books for the CIA. They read a book, they write up a synopsis. And that's what Robert Redford does. So one day he goes out to lunch, but rather than going out the front door, he goes out the back door. And when he goes out, 2 assassins come in and kill everybody in the office. So when he comes back, he finds everybody's dead. He doesn't know what to do, so he checks in. I'm not going to tell you anymore, but I'm going to tell you this. One of the things that has influenced my thinking is what they say at the end of that movie. At the end of the movie, they will tell you both about the American public and how American does things. Because we become outraged. But America many times has an ostrich in the sand mentality, and they really don't want to know. Really don't want to know how things are done. So I'm going to end it. I don't know how effective this was. I think I accomplished what I said, that I wanted to tell you how trade is supposed to work. And it's not working. And Mark Maffei, what would you do? These countries many times are taking advantage of America. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. We're covering their defense. We're taking care of their people because they can't seem to do it. They're not really educating their people to be competitive in this world. So what the president has said is he's going to threaten them. He hasn't said he's going to threaten them, but he's threatening them. And hopefully they will correct some of the processes they have, and costs will come down. Whew, I don't know if this was one of my best videos, but I said it. I did what I said. The next one I'm going to do is about capitalism. Since so many people blast capitalism, but then I'm going to ask them to define capitalism, and they can't define it. So if there's no more questions, I'm going to finish. This is 25 minutes long. Take care, may God bless.